Are you kidding me? Hello? Ah, there we go.
Hello.
Now it is working. I had suspicions. I had suspicions and I was right.
You sound Russian now.
God damn it.
I like it.
It's sexy.
It's very sexy. I like it so much.
Hi, I'm Gory B Movie.
And I'm Kayla.
And we're going to talk about books because that's what we do on the show.
Yes. Good
So,
books.
welcome. Patrick, my buddy. Patrick is here, old dude book reader. And we have Why Not Ben? Why not Ben? Why not Ben? Exactly. You know, Ben Grimm is good people.
Yeah.
I'm going to put up the things so I can highlight their chat stuff. So, this month we read
Fairy tale.
probably, the greatest author of our generation.
For a reason.
Stephen King.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you're not a horror fan, I feel like you like Stephen King. And if you say you're not, then I'm going to say, do you like Shawshank Redemption? And you're going to say yes. And I'm like, he wrote that.
And you like Stephen King.
You love Stephen King. We all love Stephen King. He's a delightful person.
It's not even arguably, like, it's widely renowned as the greatest movie of all time.
Pretty much.
So, I mean.
Yeah, the man understands feelings.
He does. He really does.
He's in touch with all the feelings, even feelings that have not been discovered yet.
Mm-hmm. True story.
Truth.
Yes. So
right here.
We read this book, and do we want to talk a little bit about what it's about?
Yeah.
Okay. While you're doing this setup, I can do that. So it starts with a young 17-year-old Charlie Reed. Well, it doesn't start. He's not 17 when it starts out. He's a little kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This book, like, here's the thing. If it was a buddy of mine writing this, and I'd be like, so what's the book about? Like, this goes through Charlie's entire damn life.
Whole life.
From when he's like a little kid, 8 years old, to he's now like 17, 16, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
It's his whole damn life.
Yeah.
And for the first half of the book, not a whole lot happens, but it's so good.
Yeah, it's really good. You really care about Charlie and his dad. So when Charlie's young, his mom dies. She gets hit by a car and flies off of this bridge. And he then kind of loses his dad to alcoholism because of the loss of his mom. So he has to grow up really fast and he has to take care of his dad. And then, we get to, his dad cleans up. He joins AA and he...
I was really happy to see that too.
Yeah, it was really great. So, they have their life, but Charlie's really grown up and really mature and really responsible. And he stumbles, he's walking and he hears a dog barking in the backyard of one of his neighbors, and he goes back there, and this man he fell off a ladder.
Yeah, he was trying to clean out his gutters or something like that. Something people who own homes do.
Yeah, and he fell, and he needed help, and the dog alerted Charlie, and And then it's all about the dog from here on out.
Yes, and he's like, the dog saved him. I'm like, oh, stop being so humble. The dog didn't have hands.
No, there was
but
no pet
essentially, yeah, Mom don't want to be buried in a pet
She's
cemetery.
also, like, cut in half.
Yeah, she's bisected.
She's, like, dead.
So he falls in love with this dog. The old man is really cantankerous, and he probably wouldn't volunteer to. Basically, the guy's getting taken away, and he's like, wants to take his dog with him or something. He doesn't know what to do because he doesn't trust anybody.
Nobody.
And Charlie's like, I will house sit and take care of your dog. And he's like, do not go through my shit. Take care of my dog. And it's just because this old man loves his dog so much that he's even conceding to this.
Yeah.
And Charlie's doing it because he kind of like prayed that his dad would get clean, and then he got that, and it's like this incredible gift that a guy from AA just happened to check in on them. It happened to take, and he feels like if he doesn't pay up on what he asked
God
for, that it's going to get taken away from him.
Yeah.
So he's kind of doing this as sort of like setting his karma right.
Yeah.
So he's doing it selflessly. He's cleaning up the man's house, and Charlie is so wholesome.
So wholesome. He's so sweet. He keeps talking about, like, all the stuff he did when he was a kid, and, like, you find out more and more about it, and it's not even that bad. Like, I mean, there's the one thing that they did that you find out later, like, the big thing that they did, which was it's not good. It's pretty terrible. But, like, in general, he's a kid, and he was going through a lot. Like, his mom died, and his dad was an alcoholic, and he was doing his best. But so he's now looking after this dog, and he's looking after this house, and the man from the house, his name is Mr. Bowditch. He has a very mysterious situation that we're all very intrigued in.
So yeah, you've got this really great coming of age story, and I think if you like things he's written, Stephen King's written, like The Body, which became Stand By Me, this is going to appeal to you a lot. This kid is super wholesome. I had a really hard time buying that he is growing up in the 2000s, because he seems like it's set in the 50s almost. He is mega wholesome. He plays sports. He fixes people's fences and stuff. But you gotta kind of let it slide because Stephen King is in his 70s. Okay, he's doing his best to write a teenager here. Even some of the things he says, or he used like a couple old-fashioned words. But for the most part, it's good. And you know what? He could just be he is from a really small town, and sometimes they are a little more like that, a little more kind of like lost in time.
Yeah, it's like some town in Illinois, I think, is where it takes place.
But he's really easy to like. He's a really nice kid. And he loves this dog, Radar, who is this really old Alsatian. She is just old, but she loves her monkey toy, and she loves her owner. She loves Charlie.
Yeah, she's a really good girl.
And Charlie would do anything for this dog. Yes. Anything.
Anything.
Meanwhile, there's an inkling of something else going on. I mean, you know that picking up this book, that it's not a coming-of-age story. There's a shed. There's things skittering around in the shed. You're not supposed to go in the shed. And so you're reading the book, and you're enjoying it. It's all wholesome. And, you know, I love that there's a friendship growing between Bowditch and Charlie, which is really cool to see those multi-generational friendships. You got this old man kind of, you know, opening up to somebody with this teenage boy. And I love that he's had similar relationships like that, like Mr. Harrington's Phone and Hearts in Atlantis and stuff. I really do like that. It's really, really sweet.
It is. It's very sweet.
And, you know, his dad is a good guy, too. Like, you just really want everything to work out.
Yeah.
Like, his dad is like, this is weird, but I trust my kid. Like, he's earned it. What's in the shed?
What's in the shed?
What's in the shed?
So there's so much, but I mean, I don't know how detailed to get into it, but eventually something happens in the shed, and Mr. Bowditch, do you say it Bowditch or Bowditch?
I was calling him Bowditch, but it's B-O-W. I mean, I didn't listen to the audiobook on this one, guys.
Well,
so
Howard.
I called him Howard or Bowditch.
Well, he goes out there to try to deal with the thing, and do we spoiler alert it?
I mean, here's the thing. I would say what happens. So, in a book, the inciting incident, you know, according to, you know, Joseph Campbell, is like the kind of thing that brings the story into light. The issue that's a call to action, and there's a couple. There's Bowditch getting injured, and then Charlie but agreeing to help him. That's like a big part of the book, and then that's done. And then the second one is when there's something in the shed that attacks them.
Yes.
And so that leads us it's almost like you get book 1 and 2 in a series. It's like a duology together.
This book almost felt like 4 books.
It really could have been.
Yeah, it could have been.
I could see, I know the rights got bought by the guy who did the Bourne Identity movies. So it's going to be made into a movie, but I really think this is kind of prime for a miniseries.
Yes. Oh, I would love to have seen this as like the 10th Kingdom, like a crappy made for TV miniseries. That would have been ideal.
I like that you want it crappy.
I do. I want it to be terrible. Like, because when it gets to like the fantasy part of it, I think that would be really fun. Like, have you seen that old Alice in Wonderland movie?
Yes.
Like that.
Yes.
I want
or
it,
even
and that's like
Tin
scary.
Man. There's a lot of them like that back in the day.
That's what I
we
want.
even have 10th Kingdom here.
I remember it being on, but that's like what I would have loved for this.
Or even the old like Narnia ones we had on BBC back in the day.
And it's very like that. It's very like, I don't know how much to say.
I think we can at least tell them like, not tell them everything that happens down there, but the basics. And then there is going to be a part where I gotta tell you guys some spoilers.
Yes.
So, sorry if you don't want spoilers. By the way, your Stranger Things top looks sick, dude.
Yeah, we went to the Stranger Things experience.
Oh, very cool. Very evil.
And it was what I had. So things happen, and Charlie ends up going into the shed. He finds out more. So Mr. Bowditch has this like bucket of gold. Upstairs.
He pays for everything
Everything
with gold.
is in gold and cash. He has this huge bucket of gold upstairs. And it's like, where did the gold come from?
Why are you so weird, Mr. Bowditch?
Yeah, there's a lot. And so you find out there's a well in the shed. It's like the staircase.
It's what's on the cover.
The cover of the book. And you find out that you can go down this staircase and you're in another world.
Yeah, it's kind of like the wardrobe, right?
Yes.
Only you're not going to Narnia.
No.
So the basic of it is you find out that there is another world.
Yes.
And, there's some things coming up, like, Raider's getting really, really old, and Mr. Bowditch is getting really, really old, and Charlie has kind of put off a lot of things in his senior year. He's put off sports, he's put off a lot of things. You're wondering if he's going to go to college. What's going to happen here? And one of the big things is that Mr. Bowditch is sitting on this passageway to another world, and he is afraid that if other people were to find it, that they could invade this world, they could hurt his friends there, that he can't let the secret getting out, and so it's time for him to trust somebody, and that somebody is Charlie.
Yeah, so it's Charlie is tasked with protecting this portal, essentially, the protecting this other world, but then there's also the flip side of that, which is protecting our world from what's in the portal.
Yes. So most things can't come out of there, except for like some bugs and stuff.
Yeah. Yes.
But I mean, I don't know about the people.
There
There are people down there.
Yes.
Like us, but not like us. It's very, as far as the fantasy elements go, it's very kind of almost Grimm's fairy tale-ish. Like there's an old woman who lives in a shoe. You essentially find out that a lot of our stories probably came from there. Like he thinks that at one point he's reading a lot of Mr. Bowditch's books. He believes that he thinks Ray Bradbury has probably been down there. He thinks a lot of authors have probably been down there.
Yeah.
But yeah, like they find a Little Mermaid.
Yes.
There's things like that. It never quite gets into full like there's like a lot of different kinds of fantasy. This is more fairy tale fantasy, less Lord of the Rings, elves.
Not epic fantasy, definitely not. Although there are elements of epic fantasy to it.
True.
But it's not like big. It's not huge like that. It's definitely fairy tale fantasy. It's very light, but the deeper you get into the world, like there are very scary things. There definitely wasn't a lot of horror to this book.
It's not horror. I don't think so at all. There are elements in the fantasy world that are pretty freaky, but it's horror light.
There's some like Lovecraftian things.
It's as scary as a Grimm's fairy tale, where a lot of those are pretty awful, guys.
Yes, it gets pretty heavy and a little bit scary. I'm excited to see how it gets adapted, because there's a lot of characters that I want to see what they look like and how scary they can be.
And a big part of the second half of the book is when Charlie gets down there, he finds out that Mr. Bowditch is always saying, cowards give gifts and they don't actually help. This world is really going through a lot of stuff. There's a virus that is making people's faces kind of melt away. There's the people who are kind of taking over as far as ruling are really bad people.
Oh, they're monstrous.
And Mr. Bowditch, he would bring things from our world that could be helpful, like keep wolves away from your house and stuff. He'd bring presents, but he was too afraid and too maybe old to actually stand up and help them because their world has been overthrown. And there's this virus, and so all these people are in a lot of distress. And Charlie basically, he goes down there because he knows, there's a lot of gold.
Yeah. He's got property taxes to pay.
Yes. And there is a sundial, kind of like the Ferris wheel in Something Wicked This Way Comes, that can increase or reverse age. So if he puts the dog, which is dying, on that, he can turn back her age a little bit so that she has more years ahead of her.
Yes.
So that's primarily what he wants, but then he's like, I can't just leave these people who are good to me, who are good to Radar. I'm here to suffer. I need to stand up and be a hero.
Yeah, and Radar is his main driving factor in the beginning.
Would you say they've got a thing called Radar Love?
I would say that they have a thing called Radar Love. That's perfect. There were so many times, in this whole Radar situation, where I just...
Radar's the dog, by the way.
Radar's the dog. I was gripping Ripley, gripping her, and trying not to cry. She's perfectly healthy. She's 3 years old. She's just a baby. But I was like, I can't. I would do anything for her.
Yes.
And if you don't know the love of a dog, I feel like a lot of this doesn't matter.
I agree with that. I saw a lot of negative reviews for this, and a lot of them were like, I don't get it, because I'm not a dog person. Yeah. I think if you're not an animal person, you can't imagine, one of my friends, his dog is very old. He's like, I would give up some of my years for her. If you're that kind of person where you love your animals like family, you're going to get it. And if you don't get it, you're not an animal person, you think they smell weird and they're obnoxious, you're just not going to get this book.
It's not going to matter to you. And Charlie just met Radar, and she's old. So he really wants to have time with her. He wants to love her and be with her. So it's important to him that he try to get some more years with her.
Yeah, he's not ready to say goodbye to her just yet.
No. So... he goes on this grand journey to,
see, why not Ben gets it? They love their dog.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love all the creatures. I actually got new creatures. I now have 7 spiders in this room, which is not very big.
No.
We got 4 jumping spiders, Chucky, Tiffany, and Glenn, and Rocky. And then we've got Poe, the Brazilian black tarantula, who's yay big. And we've got Pip, the Tleptocotyle vagans tarantula, who's
say that fast.
big. And we got Cuddles, who's my biggest one, but she's going to molt, shed her skin. She's pretty big.
She's big. She's cute.
She's a curly hair. A Tleptocotyle albopilosis.
Whoa. Holy smokes, you sound so smart.
Most people call them curly hairs because it's hard to pronounce, but here I am learning things about tarantulas.
Doing it.
Screaming in fear. They are very sweet animals.
Yeah, they're really cute.
But yeah, so I get it. I get the dog thing. I would do this for my dogs in a heartbeat. I love my animals. I love my cat. I love my dogs. I love my spiders.
Yeah, in a second, I would do it for sure.
Let's get into, and also, Ben, I will say, me 2 years ago would have screamed in terror at this situation. I have been horribly arachnophobic to the point I couldn't even watch movies that had, even Spider-Man, where the spider comes down, scared the shit out of me. And there was a little jumping spider that kind of got lost in my house after a snowstorm, and it was just so pitiful, and I raised it, and just kind of observing them and seeing how helpful they are and how they ask for so little, and they're so curious and docile, it's made me really love spiders. So, there's hope for you.
There is. I leave most spiders in my house. I let them hang out. They eat flies, and I'm like,
they're so good.
Do your work. They're
Same thing with bats. All the things that actually want to hurt you, like mites, mosquitoes, the things that actually do us harm. Bats and spiders take care of those things. They have no interest in us because they can't eat from us.
They do the work.
They just protect us from things, and we thank them by squishing them and screaming in fear. So I get you, Ben, but I'm just saying, maybe you'll have some spider friends someday.
Maybe a spider.
Maybe.
So what did you want to get into?
Let's talk about the writing. I really want to talk about the writing on this one.
Yes. I haven't read a Stephen King book in a really long time. The last time I read a Stephen King book, I read Gunslinger, and it was probably 6 years ago.
I can't remember the last one I read.
I haven't read a ton, but I have read a handful.
I've been reading a lot of, actually, I do. I've been reading some stories out of, I read to Danny, and before I was picking a whole book that we would go through, I read a few from Night Shift to him.
Oh, yeah, like some shorter stories?
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
We reread Boogeyman before the movie.
I haven't read that one.
It's good. Yeah. It's the scariest one ever.
He's a great writer.
He's fantastic.
He knows what he's doing.
He is so good at describing things. He's so good at... He has a voice where it almost feels like someone's like narrating the story for you, telling you it, and it's always... It's just so good. He gets people, like human nature, really, really well. And he's... There are people who I feel like have big words in because they looked at them up in a thesaurus and they want to impress you. And I've always agreed with the Elmore Leonard thing. Don't use a 50-cent word when a 12-cent one will do. Don't try to sound smarter than you are, because the whole point is communication. If people don't understand what the fuck you're saying, then you're
not going to get anywhere.
Exactly. But he uses these words because he's just smart.
He's just smart.
He's very well read.
And it's almost, it feels effortless. Like when he's talking about, because it's all from Charlie's perspective, but when he's talking about the dad and his alcoholism, like, that Stephen King has gone through that. He writes a lot about alcoholism. But
alcoholism, special kids, there's a lot of things that he touches on a lot. And, he came, he in the 80s, like, he doesn't even remember writing Cujo because he was so blitzed out. So it was hard for him to get sober. That's something he touches on a lot.
But he writes really well about it from the perspective of the kid. Like, as a child of alcoholic parents, like...
Hey, and coincidentally, it's a Shining one that came up.
That.
Thank you so much, Why Not Ben? He says, they gotta go. They had a good time. I don't know about the spiders. Very nice. Do not worry. I will not force any spiders on you.
You can't even see them.
Thank you so much for the generous donation. Let's give him a really quick thank you clip. Thank you, Why Not Ben?
I just feel like seeing it from he did a really good job of explaining it from Charlie's perspective, and I do think that that's how Charlie would have progressed and gone about his life, like diving into himself and just being a responsible and grown up.
Complicated emotions. We talked about how wholesome Charlie is, but even though we're adults, we're reading this and we're like, this poor man has lost the love of his life. He's raising a small kid. He's crushed right now. He is trying to survive. Yeah. And we get it. Why we get Charlie, who's angry at his dad. Yeah. And so, like, it's really great the way he writes it to where you're getting an honest reaction from Charlie. Charlie also, like you said, feels really bad about some stupid prank things. One of them was a little bad, but a lot of it just wasn't as bad as Charlie. But you also have to remember Charlie hasn't lived that much.
No, he's young. He's only 17, and so it's fresh for him. It feels really awful for him. But then once he gets into this world, he's called to do a lot more.
Yeah, and he changes a lot too, because he's never really been pushed.
No.
I mean, he had been called upon for, like, his dad and stuff, but he's never really been pushed into, like, a place where he was challenged. Like, unfortunately, when they lost their mom, their dad went into alcoholism. Sometimes we make choices that are not the best because we can't deal. And Charlie's never really had anything that's really challenged him to the point where he may not be able to deal with it. Yeah. This gets pretty bad pretty quick.
Yeah.
Charlie, not too long after being in this place, a big chunk of this book is he is in a dungeon, and it does, he does have to like kind of compete in like some Coliseum games, for survival, and that makes him pretty hardened pretty quick.
Yes, it does.
He starts swearing more.
He does. He gets a potty mouth on him. But I read a lot of reviews on Goodreads. I read a lot of things. I watched a lot of things on TikTok. Most people didn't like the second half of the book as much. I think you are also in that group. I wouldn't say I didn't like it as much, because it's definitely a different vibe though. Because you're kind of have some resolution on other things. So you're feeling a little like calmer because you're like, you know how certain things are going. But he's in a dungeon and it's cool. Like, I want to know more about that world. I want to know more about the castle. I want to know more about those night soldiers. I want to see a lot more of that. And I really liked this part of the book. It felt very like Hunger Gamesy kind of.
The only part I really was like having a hard time with was the dungeon. Because Raider's not around.
No.
Raider's not in the dungeon too. And so the things I cared the most about, Charlie's relationship with Bowditch, Charlie's relationship with Raider, and Charlie's relationship with his dad were all gone. I did not get invested in any of the new people who are in this dungeon place. Like, there's too many of them too quickly.
There was a lot.
But the biggest thing is this book goes from being very character driven. It's very character driven. It's a coming of age story, and then becomes very plot driven once they get into the fairy tale world. And so it is a little jarring where you're like, okay, we're shifting gears now. We're turning into a different story. Yeah. I did still like it, but Charlie also got really different too. The dungeon part was the hardest part to get through for me. I didn't dislike it, but I, like, early on in the book, I was really invested. It was really pulling at my heartstrings. I didn't really care about a lot of the people he met in this other world, because I was already attached to, like, I was more worried about, like, his dad and the dog. I'm like, where are they at?
I kept worrying about the dad too, especially, like, the longer he was down there.
Because he's worried that his dad might relapse.
Yes,
because
he's missing.
His dad might think that he's dead.
Yeah. I don't know. I liked it though. Like, I liked being in that world. I liked the characters you meet along the way. Like Dora. Dora was my favorite. She was so
liked
cute.
her a lot. She
and
was
Claudia and Woody.
Danny says hey Denisha, what's up? Danny says, when you find coins in your couch, that's Spider's way of paying your rent.
Yes.
Or paying their rent.
Yeah. And they eat your bugs.
It's true.
They do good for us.
They ask for nothing in return. Actually, what I did, then this is where I get into the crazy spider related territory, but I have more than enough flies and stuff to feed these guys that I take whatever's left over of what I have and I go out and I feed all the grass spiders. Like, thank you for protecting my house.
I love that. That's so sweet. That's really good. I think if we want to talk more about the writing part of it, there's a couple weird things that Stephen King does that like kind of take you out of it a little bit. Like, when Charlie's down in this world, he's like speaking their language, kind of.
Yeah.
And
that was weird.
A couple times where he like reminds you that they're not speaking English, and it feels like it kind of pulls you out a little bit.
The first few times I didn't mind it, but he does it pretty frequently where he basically will say, I said this, but I know that's not what they heard. And like, I get it, dude.
But it's also not, again, it's not a fantasy like The Lord of the Rings, where he's like building these words and these words. Like, he doesn't have to build a language for it.
If you're familiar with like Eyes of the Dragon or the Gunslinger books, you'll know what Stephen King fantasy is like. Yeah. It's not like Lord of the Rings. It's not like Narnia. It's its own animal.
Yeah.
Denisha, am I going to be part of the Craven 10K celebration? Maybe. I got a whole bunch of messages about it, so it depends on what day it is. But maybe. I would love to.
I don't know what that is.
My friend Craven Something Scary just hit 10K.
How exciting.
So that is pretty exciting.
Yeah. Well.
Actually, maybe. I don't know. I thought he had more than that, but I guess not. Anyway, it's exciting. So let's see. What else do we want to talk about the book? So yeah, it kind of slowed down a bit. Here's one thing I find really wholesome about the whole thing is this book started as a writing exercise. Like Stephen King has repeatedly said, like he's tried to retire. He is a workaholic. He cannot stop writing. Writing is how he breathes. People have said really wholesome things about Stephen King where they're like, oh, I saw him in a movie theater. He had a book on him. He does not believe in wasting any minute of the day. He always has a book.
I love that. I want to be
He
that
always
person.
has a book with him everywhere. So he says you got to steal those little moments before a movie or waiting in line to read.
Yeah.
When he's not reading, he's writing. And he says those things are really important to being a writer. But yeah, he can't not read or write. He's tried. And this book was a writing exercise that he used initially just to get through the 2020, isolation and pandemic. And you see a little bit of that in here with the isolation and it was his way of coping, of dealing, and I think that's why it is a little more upbeat than some of the darker things he's done. A lot of those things he's trying to deal with something scary in his life, and the way to deal with like the fear of losing your kid is you write a book about losing your kid, like Pet Cemetery, and that's really scary.
Live through it.
This was kind of like, I'm feeling isolated, and wouldn't it be cool if instead I gotta go to this cool other world?
No, it was really great. I feel like it's gonna be a classic. I definitely think it's one of my favorite books of all time that I've read.
Wow, that's really cool.
I put it in like top 20 maybe.
Very cool, very cool.
Yeah, I really loved it. It's a really beautiful adventure. I wanted more, and I don't think we'll ever get another one. But it is being adapted, and I'm excited to see like what else can come from it.
Yeah, I was a little worried because with Stephen King, a lot of times the endings can be a bit of a gut punch, or they can be really phoned in. Didn't think the ending was like that at all. I won't tell you what happens, but no, this book is really wholesome.
Yeah.
It has some darker moments in it. It has a few scary moments in it, but it's pretty wholesome.
Yeah, it is. It was very wholesome, and I felt the same way about the ending. I felt like it was neat. I felt satisfied about everything, and it made me want to read more old sci-fi.
It made me want to revisit some Ray Bradbury because he's reading a lot of that.
It made me want to read H.P. Lovecraft.
Yeah.
Which I haven't read very much of.
Also, parts of it kind of reminded me of like Silverchair and the Narnia series because there are like giants and stuff, but it's never like too much.
No, it's very light on the fantasy and magic, on like the creatures part of it.
It's very
There's, like,
reality based.
that go on. It's more like curse based, I would say.
Yeah, like
monsters.
the people there are humanoid.
Yeah.
Even the giants look like people.
There's a grasshopper. There's a big grasshopper.
Well, yeah.
But that's really about as weird as it gets.
It's about as weird as the
Yeah.
the turtle thing in it.
Yeah.
It's not that weird.
It's not that weird.
It's not that weird. He's done weirder things.
Yeah, it was beautiful. I thought it was a lovely book. I thought it was easy. I really enjoed it.
I really enjoyed it
gave
too.
It a 5.
I do think for this book is long. It's about 600 pages, I think. It is really long. This is not because I was really invested in the relationships and stuff. I really powered through it really quickly till we got to the fantasy stuff. Then for me, because it changed, became more plot driven. It was a little harder to get through the dungeon stuff, but I didn't think it was super slow. However, if you want something that's more plot driven, we don't get to the plot driven stuff until about halfway. So very much a coming of age thing, and you might be like, "Wow, this is so Dickens," and like. He's 8 years old, and they tell you a lot about his life. But unlike some of his other books, like Dr. Sleep did that a lot with Danny Torrance, where I'm just like, what the fuck? It went into a lot with Danny and his sobriety. And I'm like, are we going to get to any of the Shining-y stuff?
Right. And he doesn't.
That one for me took a long time. This one wasn't like that.
No.
But I don't know. Maybe it's because different characters or something.
But I mean, the main character wasn't the one who was dealing with that part.
Yeah.
Like, it was really like not part of his journey. He was a kid. He was figuring out his life and growing, and I feel
like, I guess with some of his books where they kind of have a lot of filler, I kind of feel like it was filler before the story. I'm like, I don't need this stuff. Get an editor. Whereas in this book, I felt it was more like Shawshank Redemption or The Body, where that was the story. The coming of age, the relationships are the story.
Yeah.
You know, there is some fantasy adventure stuff in it, but primarily this is about this young man discovering the kind of adult he wants to be.
Yeah.
The kind of person he wants to be. What's important to him. Is it sports or is it being a good person?
Yeah.
You know, am I somebody who helps people in need? Or am I the kind of person who, you know, he's doing this very selflessly. He doesn't ask for money or nothing.
No.
And he doesn't do it to have his face in the paper, though he does get in the paper. He's just doing it because it's the right thing to do. And I think he's kind of learning what's important. Even this whole other world, nobody in our world knows about it.
Yeah.
He could easily go back and no one's going to be like, you're a terrible person. They wouldn't fucking know.
Nobody would know.
He does it because it's the right thing to do.
Because he knows. He knows what's going on and what he feels is the right thing.
He's very much a person who has his own idea of morality and he is determined to live up to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he made a deal with God. He promised God that he would pay him back if he could get his dad through the loss of their mom.
So I would say, aside from the dungeon part, like up until that part, I probably would have been like 5 stars easy just because some of the best writing ever.
Yeah.
Beautifully written book.
Beautifully.
Incredible characters. I'm never going to... Some books I read, I'm like, what the hell was that character saying? I'm not going to forget Radar ever. Radar's in my heart now. But because there were some parts, like plot parts, where I also... The Coliseum thing's been kind of done to death. I'm a little over that with Battle Royale and Hunger Games and stuff. Just that part of it wasn't a big fan of. So I knocked it down a star. But I'm still going to give it 4, Goodreads doesn't do half stars, but I probably would go 4.5.
Yeah. I liked that part. I didn't like the battle part. Like, I don't care about that. But, like, the people who are watching the battle part, like, I thought that was cool. Because there's, like, nobody there. There's, like, 4 people.
Yeah, that is
and
weird.
They're so gross. I thought that was cool. Like, they have so much power that they were able to still do this whole thing for their mere entertainment. I don't know. I still found it pretty cool. Not like the battles themselves, not the Coliseum part itself, but like everything kind of surrounding it. That it was happening, even though it kind of felt deserted.
Yeah, it kind of made them all the more evil because they weren't doing this to like entertain a populace.
No,
they were doing it to entertain themselves.
For like 2 people.
Yeah, like honestly, this is really stupid. When I was a little kid, I lived on an Air Force base, so there was not a lot to do on an Air Force base. But we had this giant poppy field where the planes would get lower, and there'd be like anthills. And me and my friends would be like, well, me and my one friend, because I didn't have a lot of friends, we would have ant boxing matches where we'd watch the anthill and we would essentially say what was happening. That's what it feels like these people are doing.
Yeah.
Like they are bored, only instead of narrating an ant boxing match that doesn't exist, they are making these people entertain them to the death.
To the death.
So, and no, I didn't hurt the ants. I'm just saying I was a very bored child and I was finding something to entertain me.
Yeah.
These people seem just evil and bored and they're making people fight to the death to entertain them.
Yeah.
So, maybe not the best analogy. These things aren't scripted, guys.
No, we're just flying by the seat of our pants. But I liked that part. I wanted to know more about them. And then when they're traveling through the castle part, I liked that. I wanted to know more about what was going on in the castle, what was going on with her, Leah.
I liked Leah. Yeah. I pictured her as Anna Taylor-Joy. And she just played a princess in Super Mario.
She did. She could be good. I imagined her as somebody like a little bit softer looking than Anya Taylor-Joy. Anya Taylor-Joy is very angular. I don't know who I would pick. But I liked her. The goose girl.
Yes. But yeah, that part was kind of interesting. Like how like she doesn't have a mouth and she has to have this hole that she puts food in. So gross.
And she has like,
hey, Spooky Robin. What's up, Gory? First time in Bloody Book Club live. Woo! Dude, read the books with us. It's a lot of fun when we can discuss the books with you guys.
Yes.
So, I recommend this book. Obviously, you highly recommend it. 5 stars. I'm going to give it a solid 4. I highly recommend this book. Again, I think we've made it pretty clear. This is more of a fantasy. It's more of a coming of age.
It's a beast. Look how thick this thing is.
But beautifully written. And like I was telling you earlier, sometimes I read a book and I'm like, this is exciting because it's making me smarter. This book made me feel smarter.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely.
I feel like it was, reading is like calisthenics for your brain.
Mhm.
And I feel like this book was working my imagination and my vocabulary and I felt like this book made me smarter. I felt like the book made me better.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like the morality part of it too. It was definitely an enhancement to my life.
A lot of moral questions,
Yeah.
and you can't help but ask, like, what would I do?
What
And
would I do?
I'm not as I don't know if I like to think that I would.
Yeah.
But I probably would be like, I don't have the time to help this old man with more than just feeding his dog.
Yeah.
I would not be volunteering to fix up his house and stuff because
Fix the
I don't know how to
fence.
do that
Yeah.
stuff.
Caregive for him.
Yeah,
you
he
know?
starts like helping him to the bathroom
Yeah.
and stuff. I don't know. Maybe I would. I worked at an old folks home, but I don't know. Especially if that guy was a dick to me, I would
Yeah.
probably feed his dog, and then when he got home, that would be the end of it.
Yeah. But it's a great book. It's easy. I felt like even making you smarter, there's a couple words I had to look up too. It was easy to read. It was a breeze. Yeah. If I would have sat down, I could have gotten it done in a week. But
You had a busy month.
we had a lot going on. But it was
And
a
that's the
great
other thing.
book.
This is about a 600-page
Mhm.
book. I read this in about a week. I read this the first week of the month.
Mhm.
Yeah. And even when I was at your house for 4th of July, I was
Yep.
like, we should read our books.
Yep.
Is what we should be doing.
Yes, and I wanted to. I really wanted to be doing that more than anything.
Yeah, it's one of those
Yeah.
ones where you think about it all the time. You're
Mhm.
like, oh, I'd rather be reading my book right now.
Yeah, it was a good one.
So,
2 thumbs up.
yes.
If I had
4.
more thumbs, I'd do it.
Let's talk about what else we've been reading.
I haven't really been reading anything. Well, no, I've been listening to The Toll on Audible. I don't remember. Cherie something is the
Sharif
author.
don't like it? Sharif don't like it?
Cherie
Don't like it.
No, I don't know what her name is.
It's a musical show.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's interesting. It's scary.
It is?
It is scary. Yeah.
I was reading a kind of, the description made it seem kind of like Three Billy Goats Gruffish.
I don't know yet. I'm barely in it. I'm on like chapter 7. I'm listening to it with my cousin. It's good. It's intriguing. I'm interested, and
It's
and
by
it's fast. There we
Cherie
go.
Priest.
Cherie Priest. And I like it. What you read a lot of books this month.
I did. I read many books. For starters, I finished a few books that I was like halfway through that I'd put aside. I finished Warwick Davis's biography, Life's Too Short.
I didn't read
That's
that.
really, really good. He's a very upbeat, which was a great follow-up to
Yeah.
Fairy Tale. He has done a lot for little people. He has just he manages an organization that gets little people work. And he's also a part of the LP Little Person Association here in America. It talks about his whole career. So I picked it up because I was doing a thing on Leprechaun last year. And you can hear about all the
fun.
Leprechaun movies and the friends he's made and stuff. But I also didn't realize that he lost his first 2 children and some really hard things he's been through, and just the way he looks at the world, the way he manages to stay focused on his family, and just a really positive person. So highly recommend that biography. Speaking of our last book we read, Danny does give it a Lord of the Screams out of a world of witchcraft.
I don't know what any of that means. He
He is a nonsense machine.
You're an enigma, Danny. Yeah, I don't get it.
I also read, I finished reading My Heart is a Chainsaw, which I wanted to like more, or maybe I read that last month. I don't remember.
I feel like that was this month.
Maybe I read a lot of books this month.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go to my what I read page.
There you go.
There we go. Where are my books? All right. I'm on Goodreads, by the way. Find me.
Go to
there.
Goodreads.
Date read. There we go.
Someday.
Okay. Yay. I finished, I read One of Us is Lying because my son really likes mysteries, and that one is really popular right now. They have a Peacock show about it, so I got that for my son and I. He didn't end up reading it, but I read it.
I'm not surprised he didn't seem that excited
He
about
is
it.
kind of working his way through it a little bit, but it's essentially kind of, I liked the idea of it being kind of like the Breakfast Club, but it has a murder mystery. These kids, you know, you got the princess, the jock, all these guys have detention. One of them dies. And then each chapter is from the point of view of one of those kids. And so, you know, they're not entirely reliable. They've got secrets. They're keeping things. And you need to figure out, how did this guy die?
Like a whodunit.
Yeah, it is a whodunit. He had a podcast and he had dirt on everybody. It is a popular series. There are like 3 books in this series now. The writing, it's very YA. It's not one of those books that makes you feel smarter. But it was an interesting murder mystery. I'm not unhappy I read it. It's a popcorn book. It's a popcorn book. Then I read Head Like a Hole. That is in my all-time top 20 right there. It
looks really good. I'm going to read that one.
Head Like a Hole is incredible. One of the most gorgeous covers for starters. But that one, it's kind of a throwback to the 90s. This woman's interviewed about essentially how all of her friends died in the 90s and she survived. And so it takes you back to the 90s, lots of cool nostalgia. But this fisherman guy pulls a head out of the water. The head is sentient. It talks to him and it needs to eat. So he starts killing living things and feeding it his own blood. And then it grows more and more and more. It's the best homage to The Thing that was actually creative. Ooh. I've seen a lot of homages to The Thing where it's also set in Antarctica. It's like, okay, come on. You can homage something without copying it. This is as close to that as possible. It's so good. So good. And genuinely horrifying, too. Like, intense body horror.
Is Head Like a Hole, is that the title of a Nirvana song?
It's the title of a Nine Inch Nails song, and that's cool. The different chapters of the sections of this book are after songs. So, like, there's one called Come As You Are.
That's a Nirvana song.
I think there was a Damn, I Wish I Was Your Lover.
Cool.
And it's not just, like, grunge. It's a lot of grunge, which I love. But, you know, it had, like, She Works in a Bar, and they had that, like, Groove is in the Heart song playing. And other just things that were popular in the 90s, you know. Pagers and things like that, you know. They're getting ready for a party and the things that you would wear. So, yeah. I loved it. Flippin' loved it. I did finish My Heart is a Chainsaw. Was not super into that one, but I might read the sequel. I don't know.
Don't make yourself do anything.
I don't know.
There's so many good things out there to read, and we have a lot of fun things on our
list. The thing is, with My Heart is a Chainsaw, it's kind of a horror story, and I liked the character a lot. It's this Native American girl who, she believes somebody else is the final girl, and she's obsessed with slashers, and she's really, really hard on herself. And, she thinks that she understands what's killing people, and she's trying to help this other girl step up to be the final girl, and I loved all of that. I loved her. The writing is really, really hard to read. It's really hard to get through. It's very unfocused. It went off on some weird tangents. And also, I think it being first-person point of view was a mistake because there's some big action scenes where that character does not really understand or see what's happening. And I wanted to understand what was happening. Yeah. So I got really, really frustrated. That was a really hard one to read. But I liked the character enough that I might give the second book a chance.
Okay.
Let's see what else. Okay, and then my favorite book of the year, because this did come out this year, just came out like a month ago, was Night's Edge by Liz Caron. That book is fucking amazing. I was telling you about it earlier, but it's set in 2 time periods. One in, like, I think 2010, and one now where a young girl, her mom is turned into a vampire. And so when she's about 10 years old, it's her coming to the terms with the fact that her mother is a vampire and, you know, is gonna hurt people and all these things. And she decides, no, I would rather have my mom drink my blood than hunt people. And then modern day, where she's 23 years old, her mom runs a restaurant. She has no friends. She has no relationships. She can't even drink or anything because every day she gives blood to her mom, so her mom won't hunt. And just kind of realizing that she has nothing for herself. And then she starts to get interested in a girl, and that starts to make her want things for herself. want freedom, she has this very codependent, very toxic relationship with her mother, but it's so beautifully written. I loved, her mom, and I loved her, but I also didn't really want them to be together, but I didn't know another solution. And that's honestly the best way to write it, because it's not an easy thing. If it was easy, people wouldn't get stuck in toxic relationships.
Very complex. That one looked really good. Is that the one that you said was free on Unlimited on Kindle?
The one that's free on Kindle Unlimited is Head Like a Hole.
Well, I'm
by
gonna read
Andrew Van Way. So good. And Knight's Edge isn't, but I have a copy of it I can lend you. But it was really good. And there's a second one coming out next year that's already my most anticipated book of next year, which is called First Light. And there's a show being adapted for Freeform. So yeah, just take my money. I love that book so much.
Yeah, I'm gonna read that one for sure.
So good.
Yeah.
So good. All the feelings. So many feelings I had.
Yeah.
But yeah, scariest book of this year though, Head Like a Hole. Both of those books, I was like, damn, I wish I picked these for book club, because these are so good.
That's okay. They're pretty short. We should be able to blow through a couple.
Yeah, they're both really good. And now we're reading In Nightfall.
You're like halfway through. I have barely started. It might be a tough one, guys.
Checking in with the chat really quick. Danny says both got signed copies of Ronnie Angel's new book, Death in the Family, which is really cool. We have a buddy, Ronnie Angel, who's written a couple books about slasher movies. He grew up in a funeral home, and it's a book about essentially growing up in a funeral home that was also co-written by his father. And I got a signed copy of that. Danny got a signed copy, so I'm excited to read that. Danny's reading it right now. And Robin is reading Seed by Ania Alborn. That's one I actually think you would like too. Yeah. I haven't read it yet, but it's been on my to-read list for...
What's it about?
Forever. Seed. It's like... It's kind of a fantasy type, fairy tale type thing. I'm trying to find a good, just better...
There she is.
Yeah. This has been on my list for a while, so...
Fans of Stephen King and Blake Crouch. I do love Blake Crouch.
Oh, I do too.
A lot. I think about the Wayward Pines books all the time.
Yeah.
Constantly. I'm always thinking about them. I would give my firstborn child to be able to read them again. It looks good.
Yeah, there's some creature thing, and I don't know. It's got dark fiction, dark fairy tale-ishness to it. That has been on my list for a long time. So that's another thing you guys can do. Bloody Book Club, you can suggest books that you want us to read with you, or you just want us to read.
Yeah.
So there's a discussion section, and we have discussions for each book, but we also have a general section where you can recommend books.
Please do.
Alex says, been wanting to read something new from Stephen King, rereading Salem's Lot right now. The movie is supposed to come out soon, so I really want to reread that one as well. But fairy tale, I wouldn't have picked it if we weren't looking for a horror fantasy type thing. And Kayla hadn't really wanted to read it, and I'm really glad I did, because I feel enriched, guys.
Yes. That's a really good word to use for it. Definitely not horror, but so good. It was a joy to read. My heart grew three sizes by the end. And I cuddled my dog a lot. Yeah, oh my god, so many dog cuddles. It was like, everybody has to sign a 10-year contract in my house.
So, I feel guilty, because we kind of reevaluated some books, what were you excited about? Yeah. Danny wants us to read Grunts. You know what, Danny? Go onto the Goodreads page and suggest it.
Please.
Thank you.
Make it official.
Yeah, make it official.
So yeah, we moved some things around. We were supposed to read How to Sell a Haunted House this next month.
Which was it's still my number one most anticipated book of the year, because I love Grady Hendrix.
But we bumped it to September.
Because I found another one that sounded exactly like my kind of book, and it's more of a summer read. Mm-hmm. Kind of like This Delicious Death, where I consider a summer read one that you're maybe not going to remember in 3 years' time, but it's fun, it's breezy, you get it done in a day, you read it on the beach, and it just makes your summer a little more fun.
Yeah.
It's for the summer months when you don't have as much of an attention span.
So that we're reading now is called In Nightfall. I can't remember the name of the author.
Suzanne.
You're gonna have to pull it up.
I'm Suzanne Young.
I'm only 2 chapters in. I've barely started.
I really feel bad that I picked this. I really don't like it.
it's fine. They can't all be winners. They can't.
But
all be
it's fine,
winners.
because I'm sure you guys would eventually start to distrust us if every month we're like, such a good book,
100%.
read it. So this book was on my anticipated list because it is described as being something for fans of Lost Boys and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, being kind of a gender-bent Lost Boys. And so I was like, ooh, love this. And I definitely see that, though. As I'm reading it, I'm more like, no, it's less of an homage to the Lost Boys and more just let's just rip it off and take out the vampires.
And I haven't seen Lost Boys, so I have nothing to compare it to.
You haven't seen The Craft either. Okay,
So,
let me
I
know
know.
if you guys would love a series where I make Kayla watch really awesome movies she hasn't seen, like The Lost Boys and The Craft, and we
That would be
talk
really
about
fun.
them.
That would be really fun.
I think that needs to happen.
Yeah, I think so too. Maybe we'll do it anyway.
Like, we could do like a little video intro thing and then go watch the movie and get your immediate like,
Yeah.
oh, I should film you watching it too so we can see your little eyes glow.
We could do, like, you know how they do, like, those, like, Doug watches this guy who watches, like, Star Wars show episodes, and it's like, it's like there's, like, a timer in the bottom, and then he's, like, kind of talking while he watches it. Maybe we could do something like
We
that.
could, we could do a watch party where
Mhm.
we watch it live.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. I
That's
like
a
that
good
even
idea.
better. That's less
Yeah.
homework.
Yeah.
We watch it live with you guys, and if you haven't seen it, then we're all watching
For
it.
the first time together.
Except for me, because I've
Yeah.
seen The Craft a billion times, and it keeps getting better every time I see it.
So I don't think I'll have as much to be disappointed in with this book, but I can be disappointed
I
in the
don't
writing.
get the Buffy comparison at all. It's nothing like
Mhm.
Buffy, except for maybe there's a new girl. So essentially, this is what happens. You have. Here's one of the
You
things
don't
I
have
hate.
to get into it yet.
Well, this is next month's book.
Yeah.
Essentially, these two siblings, which again is like Lost Boys, and Lost Boys is two brothers. The Lost Boys is two brothers who go to Santa Carla, and it's the murder capital of the world, and there's vampires, and then the brother gets kind of interested in this kind of weird group of people who are vampires. Like, there's a pretty girl, and there's some guys who are like have motorcycles, and they're all
spoiler
bad
alert,
off.
but it's like 40 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's almost exactly what happens in this. This is two siblings where already I don't like them because I feel like they're really fucking entitled.
They're funny though.
They're
I
funny,
think they're funny.
but their parents have gotten a divorce. Their mom is getting remarried, so she's not spending the summer with them. She's moving in with her new husband. Their dad is coping with just getting divorced. So his mother, who he hasn't seen in like over 18 years, they've never met their grandmother because their grandmother won't take a plane. But I'm like, you've never visited your mom in the last whatever.
Seems a little crazy.
So he's going back home to Oregon to be with his mom, and he has to take them, even though they're like 18 and 19, because they threw a house party that got on the news, destroyed the house, and yet they have the audacity to be mad at their father, even though they destroyed his house and he's going through a divorce. But just go fuck yourselves. You guys are assholes.
So we'll see. We'll see how good this book is in the end. Like I said, I barely started. You're already halfway through. I think it's going to be a breeze. It's pretty young adult.
Very young adult,
so-
not very descriptive, not any writing that's going to make you feel super enriched. It is funny. I'll give you that. There's a lot of funny parts in it. It's so far pretty easy to read. My biggest complaint is I'm 48% in, and I know this is a book about vampires, and I'm pretty sure I know who the vampire characters are just because it's kind of ripping off Lost Boys. But there have been no vampires in the book.
Bummer.
I need vampires.
So we took The Exorcist off of the list to read this book. We were going to read that in September, but we bumped How to Sell a Haunted House down to September. And we also changed our December book. We were going to read Nosferatu, but you've already read it.
And it's really long.
So we're going to read Hidden Pictures instead
Yeah,
by
that was-
Jason Rekulak.
The best horror book of last year on Goodreads.
So we're gonna read that one in December now, which I'm really excited for.
I'm excited for
Yeah.
it too. I mean, it's honestly Goodreads, the horror award. It tends to go to Stephen King every year, and I feel like a lot of people didn't even read the books. They just vote for Stephen King because it's familiar, or maybe it's the one horror book they did read.
Right.
So the fact that this guy I've never heard of made this book, it's got to be good.
And I bought this book several months ago, like at the very beginning of the year. I saw it on TikTok, and it's illustrated. So it's like part of it is there's like these pictures, and it's like part of the story. And I was like, oh, that's cool. It was recommended, I feel like, in the same vein as House of Leaves. I don't think
still
it's
need to read
going to be
that,
as
too.
intense as that.
I've owned
very
that book
easy,
since
but-
like the 90s.
Yeah.
And I haven't read it.
I also have owned it for several years, and someday
It's
maybe.
intimidating. It's
Yeah.
right here on the shelf. It's a big fatty
Yeah.
fat book, and there's parts where it goes like in a spiral, and
And there's some pages that only have one word on them. It's pretty
it's
crazy.
intimidating.
There's a lot of footnotes. It's a whole thing. Someday maybe, but so I was like thinking about House of Leaves when I saw this book too, and so I was like, I'll get that.
For one of our themes next year, we should do a book that we've had on our the book, like a book that we've both had on our to read
TBR,
list
yeah.
for a long time.
That's a good idea. That'll be fun.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So yeah, that's.
Hey,
those
Katie!
are the
Katie's
things
here,
we
and
do.
cheers to fears. Nice to see you guys. Yeah. Summer, I haven't been really active. I've been keeping up with book club, but I need to do some more videos and stuff. I get it, dude. Summer, like, I think a lot of people kind of
It's
just
busy.
have other things that there's a lot going
Well,
on.
you've got kids at home. You've got it's 1.5 million degrees outside. I can't think in this heat.
Yeah, my son graduated. Which
Your
is
son just
crazy.
graduated. I've got my kid for the summer.
I have 7 spiders now.
She has 7 spiders she has to take care of, you guys.
7 mouths to
She's
feed.
busy. Oh my gosh. But yeah, that's okay. We're keeping up on it. And I feel like Fairy Tale was a nice
So good.
distraction for the summer. I loved it.
So,
I loved it.
Yeah, I don't. Please follow us on Goodreads. I enjoy talking to you guys. Oh crap! It reminds me. No, I did do an update. I got to do another update.
Yeah.
So on Goodreads we have a discussion group. So every quarter of the book, as close to 25%, 50%, 75, and then 100, we have little sections where we talk about it. That way, you don't get spoiled.
Yeah.
So
You're a lot better at it than I am. I'm really bad at it.
you were good on Fairy Tale though. So
First 2 parts.
you can join us and just see our thoughts on it and share your own thoughts. You know, I'd like to get more people involved to where we start having like real discussions.
Like a true book club.
I also will post updates on what I'm reading there so you can see what I'm reading, see what I think about it. Yeah, I have a feeling next month I'm not going to have lots of great things to say about this one, but it is really easy to read and breezy, and hopefully I get it done soon so I can read something I like again.
Yeah. I say your goal should be to finish it by the end of next week so that you can move on.
At
to
least,
something
I mean, like, I had a hard
That's gonna be my
time
goal.
finishing My Heart as a Chainsaw. That was
Yeah.
hard to get through. And even Clown in the Cornfield 2 was hard to get through.
That one took me a long time to get through too. And
But-
I honestly think I was listening to it on audiobook, didn't pay attention for like the last quarter
This
of it.
feels, honestly, it feels like a Goosebump book. It doesn't even feel, I feel like it's an insult to call this book YA. It's like middle grade. Nothing scary's happened.
Bummer.
Nothing. Actually, Goosebump books are scarier.
Goosebump books are scary.
A lot of them were really terrifying.
Yeah, they were. Like the Haunted Mask one, I had true nightmares about that movie.
Yes.
True nightmares. So, we'll see.
There was one of them where they go to like an amusement park or something and the kids die at the end. I'm like, what the fuck? And it's because the kids weren't even real kids. They were like robots or something, but it like fucked me up.
Oh my god, that's so upsetting. So upsetting.
Oh my god, I was so
Goosebumps
obsessed.
And
Fear Street.
Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Oh my god, yes.
Whew, man.
I was my little brothers were into Goosebumps. I was like Fear Street all the way though.
Yeah.
Like every new Fear Street.
Did you like the Fear Street movies?
Yes.
I loved those movies. They were really
So good.
Yeah.
I kind of want them to do another like set of those because those were so good.
Yeah, I would watch that.
Yes.
Did you like The Babysitter? I feel like we've
Babysitter?
talked about this one a little bit.
I liked it. I do feel like it was a little try hard.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was funny.
But it was
I feel
funny?
like I laughed a lot.
And the second one was good too.
Yeah, I agree.
They do a lot of those like graphics on the screen things, and it was a little much.
Yeah,
But I did like it. I think they could have dialed it back a bit.
I like that part of
You
it.
know what was surprisingly really, really fucking good? And I thought it was gonna be garbage. The Blackening
I don't know.
was so
Was it?
good. Yeah. It's kind of like, because I've seen a lot of, I guess, modern blaxploitation things like Meet the Blacks, which is kind of like The Purge, but it's a black family. And a lot of them, like, I don't hate them as much as a lot of people do, but a lot of them don't do super well. I thought this was kind of like that. Surprised it was coming out in theaters. But no, it's this group of friends getting together for Juneteenth. You know, so they're all, you know, black friends celebrating Juneteenth together in a cabin. And I'm just like, this is going to be terrible. You know, it was really good.
I have to watch
They
it.
find this really racist looking game. It's got like a Sambo character on it and asks them questions about like black history and stuff. And if they don't get them right, then it turns into like a Saw thing where they get like taken away and murdered. So it's a little of an homage to Saw. It's a little homage to Scream. And I honestly, that's one of the few problems with Scream is it's all
white
rich white kids. So if you
They're
love,
starting to kind of
they
change
get
it
better
up,
with the
but
sequels. But when Scream came out, I mean that movie,
Yeah.
it's upper class white kids.
Yeah.
So I can see if you were in the 90s and you loved it, but you just wanted, you know, some representation, you wanted to be a part of the story, The Blackening.
We just watched They Clone Tyrone. With John Boyega and Jamie Foxx, and I can't remember the lady's name, but it's kind of sci-fi. I can't recommend it enough. It was really good.
Yeah?
Yeah, I can't tell you
Blackening
what it's
was
about.
also really funny, too, so I
So is
recommend
this
it for
movie.
that.
I would watch a spinoff of what Jamie Foxx and the girl, their whole thing, because he's a pimp and she's a hoe, and they're so funny together. They're so funny.
Gory just did a Beetlejuice quote. I do many Beetlejuice quotes.
What did you say?
When I was saying it keeps getting better every time I see it. The line in Beetlejuice is, I've seen The Exorcist so many times. It keeps getting funnier every single time I see it. The movie I quote the most, though, every day, which is my favorite movie, and it's not even a horror movie, depending on who you talk to, is Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Love
That movie is terrifying.
I know, it really is.
That movie is so
One of
scary.
our old horror addicts videos, it was like top 5 saddest deaths, and I had the Toon Shoe on it. That broke my heart as a child.
Toon Shoe. I would put it up at the top 5 for sure.
For sure.
And the horse from the Neverending Story.
That's a hard one.
It is a hard one.
Or when you have to read Where the Red Fern Grows.
Nope, won't do it. Nope, won't do it.
Oof.
Okay.
Oof. That was lots of emotions happened during this stream.
It is. We're very emotional people.
We are. We're full of emotions.
Yeah.
So,
Complex
yeah,
people.
there is a link in the doobly-doo down below where you will find our Goodreads group. That's how you get Bloody Book Club, like, throughout the month. You don't need to wait for the stream, but if you want to just wait for the stream and hear our thoughts, that is the first Thursday of every month. And I already put next month's stream up for In Nightfall, so you can go ahead, set your reminder for that one so you don't miss it.
So the next one will be September 7th.
Yes. All right. I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Are you? I don't think you are.
Okay, I'm excited to get to the next one so we can read my most anticipated book of the year, How to Read a Haunted House, or How to Sell a Haunted House.
Yes.
Because I love Grady Hendrix. He is funny.
I feel like our next few books after this one, I mean, this book is fine. I don't really care. But I think I'm really excited about the rest of our books. I'm excited for How to Sell a Haunted House. I'm excited for
Episode 13?
Episode 13.
Which is Craig DeLuey, who's incredible.
I'm excited for Dark Harvest.
Yeah.
And I'm excited for Hidden Pictures.
Yeah, we've got some good books coming up this year. It's not too late to join. You can join anytime you want. So please join us. We would love that. Yeah. And thank you guys for hanging out with us. Cheers to Fears, Katie, Robin. Why not Ben? Why not Ben? Patrick, it was so awesome to see you guys. I miss you guys, you know. I'm going to be more productive with the videos and stuff soon so we can all, you know, discuss the things of...
Yeah, the spooky stuff.
Spooky things,
Spooky stuff.
All right. Okay. Well, Killer Kayla. Killing it like she do.
Yeah.
Signing out, guys, until we meet again.
Yes. Blessed be. Bye.